Today's daf yomi is Bava Basra daf Zayin Bava Basra 16. Today's daf yomi is dedicated to a shmir for our chayalim. That's all for the shvuyim. Yeshua for Am Yisrael. We're studying Bava Basra. The daf is Zayin. We're going to start on Teshvav Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom or 3 lines from the bottom, and we're going through a commentary on the book of Eov. And the Gemara says, is quoting the psukim from Eov, Vayomer Hashem al Satan. Actually, we'll start one pasuk above this, on 4 lines from the top. It says 4 lines from the bottom. Hashem says to Satan in the book of Eov, the character, he says, stretch out your hand and touch everything that belongs to him, and see if he curses God. Hashem said to the Satan, Hashem responded to Satan, you can do whatever you want. Just do not stretch forth your hand upon him. It was that day. And his sons and daughters were eating and drinking in the houses of their brother. And a messenger came to Job, and he said, the oxen are plowing, and the donkeys are grazing. So the Gemara says, what does it mean? What does it mean? The cows are plowing, and the oxen are plowing, and the cows and the donkeys are grazing. What does that mean? God had given Job so many blessings. He had given him like a taste of the world to come, because right after the oxen were plowing, immediately the donkeys were grazing. And then the pasuk continues, still in the first and second chapters of the book of Eov. So a messenger was speaking, and all of a sudden another messenger came to Eov and said, a fire has come forth from God and has killed your servants and your animals. And then another messenger came and said, the Chaldeans came and they took three army units, and they took your camels, and they took them. Another one came and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of their brothers. And a mighty wind came and it struck the 4 corners of the house, so that it collapsed and everyone died. Eov got up, he tore his coat, he cut the hair off of his head. He said, I came forth naked from the stomach of my mother, from the womb of my mother. I'll return naked. Hashem Natan, Hashem Lakach, Hashem has given, Hashem has taken, Yishem Hashem Evorach. May the name of Hashem be blessed. And all this, Eov did not sin, and he never did not sin against God. He did not. Here, the word tefillah does not mean prayer. It means he didn't attribute to God capriciousness. And it was that day, and the angels came to stand before God. And God says to Satan, where are you coming from? And Satan says, I've been wandering the earth. And Amro Afanav, the Satan said before God, Ribbon Shalom, Shatatati B'chol Ha'olam, have explored the whole God. I never found anybody like your servant Abraham. Why? You said to Abraham, you said to Abraham, go out into the land and search it for your length and the width, because I'm giving it to you. When Abraham wanted to bury Sarah, he didn't find any place to bury her. And he didn't challenge God's ways. So God says to Satan, have you looked at my servant Eov? He says, have you looked at Eov? You're inciting him for nothing, and you're hurting him for nothing. And there's nobody as great as Eov. if this pasuk weren't said, it would be impossible to say it. Ka'adam shemasitin osov v'nesita, because the pasuk describes God like a person who others encourage and God is persuaded by them. Meaning, say that God just punished Eov because the Satan told them to. The Masni Satana in the Bryce, it's taught Yored Umatev Oler Market that the Satan goes down into the world and entices people to sin, and then he comes up to the heaven and gets God upset by inciting God against them. No Torah Shus no Torah Neshama. He takes permission to kill, and he takes permission to take the soul. Vayana Satan Neshama Yamar Od Ba'od or Ba'ad or B'chol Asher Ishi Teim Ba'ad Nafsho. He says, limb for limb, and all that a man has, he will give up for his life. Previously, he told me I couldn't touch him, but now if you let me touch him, if you let actually me touch him physically, then let's see if he doesn't curse you. He said, okay, you could touch him, just don't kill him. Satan went out from God and he struck down Job. He said, the pain of Satan is worse than the pain of Eov, meaning to say Satan's job was more difficult than even Eov's pain. Why? It's like a parable of a person who tells to a slave, break the barrel but keep the wine, meaning you're allowed to torture him but don't kill him. The Satan is the same as the evil inclination, is the same as the angel of death. How do we know this? Says the Satan went out from God, who Yetzirah. He's also the evil Yetzirah because it says Rak Hayom. It was bad all day long. So we see the word Rak appears in all these places. How do we know he's the angel of death? It says Rak et nafsho shemor. Alma b'didei kaim. He says, don't kill him. So we see that Satan had the ability to kill him. So he's the angel of death. Amar Rabbi Levi, Satan u'penina Hashem shemayim niskavnu. The Satan and Penina intended to do for the sake of heaven. Satan. How do we know that Satan intended the sake of heaven? Kivan the Achazia HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not die since God saw, when Satan saw that God was giving favoritism to Job. He said, I'm worried, God forbid, that he'll forget the mercy of Avraham. And that God, because this goes according to the opinion that Job was not Jewish, so he was worried that God was going to forget the mercy showed to Abraham, and so he wanted to show that Job was not perfect. Penina Delsev, Penina, because that when Chana, Penina's Sarasa, her co-wife, she angered her to make her get upset the fact that she was that Chana didn't have a child, and it was Penina wanted to get Chana to pray. And Darsh Rav Bar Yaakov also Satan Nashkel when Rabbi Levi taught us that Satan had the good intentions, Satan came and kissed his legs. There's a beautiful drasha by Rav Chaim Shmuel Evitz where he talks about how even though Penina intended for the sake of heaven, the Gemara says that elsewhere that she was punished for this. But if she intended for the sake of heaven, why was she punished? So he says, if somebody hurts somebody else's feelings and he puts them down, even though you're trying to motivate them and build them up, it doesn't matter. You're still going to be punished. It's like a person who's put their hand, Rahman al into a fire to save a baby. Even though you saved the baby, you're going to be punished. So if you hurt somebody, even though you're trying to help them, you'll still have to be punished for the hurt that you caused them. With all this, Eov did not sin with his lips. Says the pasuk. So Amarava b'tzvasa. He didn't sin with his lips, but he did sin with his heart. Maika Amar. What did Eov mean when he said Eretz nitna biad rasha pnei shoftel yachasem lo efomehu? Land is given into the hands of the wicked. He covers the faces of its judges. If not, then who is it? If it's not God, then who is the one who punishes people? Amarava bikesh Eov afoch karal piyah. Eov wanted to turn the plate upside down. He wanted to overthrow the respect for Hashem. So Abai says, no, Eov wasn't referring to God. He was referring to Satan. Kitana, it's a dispute. Who is Eov referring to when he says, Imlo Efo Mihu? So one says, the land was given to the hands of the wicked. That Eov was trying to blaspheme Hashem. Amar Rabbi Yeshua, Now he's speaking at Satan. So here's the pasuk says, "Al da'atcha ki lo rasha ve'emi adcha matzil." Eob said to God, "If it were your intent, I would not be wicked. Nobody can save from your hand." Meaning to say, what does that mean? Bikush Amarava Bikush Eob uftarat kol om kol min adin. Eob wanted to save everybody from judgment. Amar Wafanav Ribono Shel Olam. So that Eob said to God, Master of the universe, Barasach Shor Parsos of Sedukos. You created the ox with split hooves. Barasach Hamor Parsos of Kutos. You created the donkey with closed hooves. Barasa Gan Eden, Barasa Gehanim. You created Garden of Eden, Garden of and Gehanim. Barasa Tzadikim, Barasa Rashayim. You created Tzadikim and Rashayim. Mima Aki Vayatcha. Who can stop you? Meaning to say, we have no free choice. If we're supposed to curse God, it's coming from you. You created us this way. It's everything's predetermined. So what did Eob's friends answer him? Certainly you will, if you keep saying this, you're going to cause people to not fear Hashem, and you'll diminish prayers to Hashem. If everything is coming from Hashem, then if everything is predisposed, then what's the point of praying? What's the point of having Yiras Hashem? No, Hashem gave us the Yetzer Hara, and that causes us to sin, but he also gave us Torah as a spice to prevent us from sinning. What does it mean when the pasuk says in chapter 29 of Job, the blessing of the Oved was upon me, the blessing of the lost one was upon me. The lave almana arnin, and the heart of the widow I will make joyous. This teaches us that Job was taking fields from the orphans, and improving them, and returning to them. And then he was making the widows joyous. Wherever there was a widow, where everybody was afraid to marry, that what would happen is that Eob would go and put his name upon her and say he was a relative, and people will come and marry her. So then the Gemara says a couple of statements that Eob makes, which are maybe blasphemous. He said, let my upset be weighed and my experience put on a scale. Let them be together. Amarav, what does this mean? Put stuff Eob's mouth with dirt. He talks like a friend to God. He's saying to Hashem, let's decide which one of us is correct. He says to God, there's nobody who could decide between us which one of us is right. Amarav, put dirt in his mouth. Is there any slave that rebukes his master? He says, I made a bris with my eyes. Why would I look at a virgin? Amarav, he says he wouldn't look at another woman. So Eob says, I wouldn't look at another woman aside from my wife, but Avram didn't even look at his own wife. It says, he says to Sarah when they go into Egypt, behold, now I know that you're beautiful. He called him Ikara lo the other way. This means that initially, before they went down to Egypt, he didn't even know that Abraham didn't even know that his wife was beautiful. And then it says, hold on. It says in the Kila Anan Vayilch Kain Yorei Shaol Yahweh. Just like the cloud ends and it goes away, so too I'll go down to Shaol and I will not rise after. Once you're dead, you're dead. I'm a Rava Mikan Shekafar Eob is amazing. Eob rejects the resurrection of the dead. Another statement that Eob made, Asher Basara Yeshufeni Verba Pitza'ichinam. He shattered me with this Sa'ara, with this whirlwind. Yeah, he made me have many more wounds for no reason. Amarava Eob Basara Haraf Visara Heshivug. Eob angered Hashem with the Sa'ara, with this whirlwind, and he was answered with the whirlwind. If he angered God with the Sa'ara, Asher Basara Yeshufeni. He shattered me with his Sa'ara, meaning to say, he said, Master of the universe, maybe a Sa'ara passed before you, and caused you to make a mistake between Job and an enemy, meaning to say maybe I'm being punished by mistake. B'sarai shivu, but then God answered him with Hasara because it says Vayana Hashem es Eov min hasara vayomar. God answered Job from the whirlwind, and he said, Ezer na kegever chalatzecha v'ashalcha v'odi'eni. Tying up your loins like a man going out to battle, and I will put questions to you, and you will answer me. Amarlo, Job, God said to Job, Harbeini min barasi ba'adam. I create a lot of hairs. Every hair has its own follicle. Shaloyu shtayim yonkos miguma achas. Two hairs can't be nourished from one follicle. Shamali shtayim yonkos miguma achas. Machshivas more einav shaladam. If there were two hairs from one follicle, they would make a person's take away their eyesight. Ben gumo gumo on eschalafli, ben iov iov neschalafli. You think I won't make a mistake between one follicle and another follicle, but I'm going to make a mistake between Job and an enemy, between Eov and Oyev. So then it says, who opened the channel for the waters? Harbe tipin barasi ba'avim. I create a lot of drops in the clouds. Every drop has its own channel to come down. Like every snowflake is its own unit. And so therefore, no two raindrops come out from the same channel. If two drops came out from the same channel, the whole world would flood. And the whole world would turn into clay. There would be no fruit. You see, I think I can't distinguish between two drops of rain, but I can distinguish between two drops of rain, but not between Job and an enemy, between Eov and Oyev. So how do we know that this expression of ta'ala means a channel? Because it says in Malachim, referring to when Eliyahu filled the water at Har Carmel, and it says there, Vayaz ta'ala b'kebesa time zera. Eliyahu made a ta'ala that was the size of Beis Satayim zera, to sow a field that was Beis Satayim. V'derach lachaziz kolos, and it says he made a path for the thunder, for the lachaziz kolos, to carry a path for the clouds to carry the thunder. Harbe kolos barati ba'adam. God says, I created a lot of thunder. Each thunder has its own path. I don't want two thunders coming out on one path. Because if they went out on one path, the whole world will be destroyed. You think I can't distinguish between two paths for the thunder, but I can distinguish between two paths for the thunder, but not between Job, Eov, and Oyev. Another example, God says to Eov, can you understand why when the goat will give birth, and can you understand when the gazelle, the ayal, will also need to give birth? This goat is cruel when it gives birth, because Bisha Shekoras Oledis, when it squats down to give birth. Oel Rosh Har goes to the top of the mountain, so that its offspring will die. Animas minula nesher, but I prepare an eagle. Shemakabel b'kunafav u'menichol. And what do I do? Sometimes I create the eagle that catches the baby and puts it down in front of her. If the eagle will be one moment too late, I immediately die. I don't mess up between one moment and another. You think I'm going to mess up between Eov and Oyev? A fifth example. Hashem anticipates the pangs of the ayal. Ayal azu rachmatz are this gazelle. Its birth canal is narrow. And I prepare a snake in front of her when she's about to give birth. That bites the birth canal and causes it to open up. If it was a 1 second too early or too late, it would immediately die. I can distinguish for that. I can for sure distinguish between Job and an enemy. Eov speaks without das, without knowledge, and dvarav lo baskil. He doesn't deliberate. This is a tremendous verse. It tells us that a tremendous line from the Gemara. It says a person is not punished by God for something he says in his moment of tsar, in his moment of pain. He's not going to be punished. Vayishma shloshes re'ei Eov es kol haras azot sabah elav hayavo ishmi mikomo Elifaz haTemani ubodad hashichud v'tzofar namati. So Eov's friends heard about what happened to him, and each one came. Elifaz haTemani, Bildad hashuchi, and so far the namati. Vayivadu yachdav, and they came together. Havo a good row u'nachamo. They met together to commiserate and to comfort him. Ma vayivadu yachdav. What does it mean they came together? Amar Yehuda Amar Muhammad. All of them entered into one gate. Between each of them, there was a distance of 300 parsas, and they all came in through the same gate. How do they know this? That what happened to Eov? Some say that each of them had a crown, and on this crown there was each of the names of the other three were written. And when something happened, the crown would change. If they had a tree. When the trees, which they had written their names on together, when they withered, then they knew what had happened. This is what people say, "Oh, chavra kechavri di Eov o mituta." Give me friends like the friends of Job, or give me death. And when it came to pass that the people began to increase on the earth, and they gave birth to daughters. This is from the beginning of the Torah. It says that there were Benosa Elokim. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Revia Ba'olam. So when these daughters were born, Revia, being fruitful, came to the earth. Rishlakish says Merida Ba'olam. No, when the girls came to the world, it didn't bring fruitfulness, it brought fighting. According to you, who says that when the girls were born, there came fruitfulness to the world. So how come at the end, when Hashem gave Eov everything back double, how come he got twice as many sons? But because initially he had 7, and now he had 14, but he remained with 3 daughters just like he had before. They didn't have twice as many daughters, but they did have twice as many beauty. As it says, he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. That the name of one of them was Yemima, the name of the second one was Ketzia, and the name of the third one was Karen Afuch. Yemima, why was she called Yemima? She was called Yemima because she was bright like the day. Ketzia Shaya Recha Nodef Ketzia. She was called Ketzia because she had a smell like a Ketzia. Karen Afuch, why was she called Karen Afuch? Amri Debei Rabbi Shila Shadomo Karna de Keresh, because she was like the horn of a keresh. A keresh is an animal, Rashi says, with horns that when anything that touches them, it makes them black, and so therefore she had a horn like a keresh. They laughed at them. Marava Karna de Keresh Lakusi. This is considered something bad, not something good to have horns that make you black. It is like saffron. We've already seen that saffron is the most special spice. It's like the best of its kind. Though you enlarge your eyes with cosmetics. Rabbi Shimon bar Rebbe is Yadalei Barater. When Rabbi Shimon bar Rebbe had a daughter, at first he was upset. Rabbi said to him, why are you upset? You have a daughter, Revia Ba'olam. Now you're going to have people going to give birth. It's a great thing. Your father gave you tamchumim, comfort, which was worthless. The Tanya doesn't it state you can't have a world without zacharim and a cave without males or females. Fortune is the one who has males. Unfortunate is one who has nekevos. It's impossible to have a world without perfumers and tanners. Asher mishu munaso busmi. Fortunate is the one who has perfumers. Unfortunate is the one who has tanners. Some of the Mepharshim say when the Gemara refers to Zachar and Nekevos, it doesn't mean an absolute male and absolute female. It means somebody who operates in the world like a male, meaning with a drive to change the world, to be ambitious. Whereas a Nekeva is more passive. Kitanai, as it says in the Mahukas Tanaim, if it's considered to be something good to have daughters. Hashem beirachas Avram b'kol. Hashem blessed Abraham with everything. My b'kol. What does it mean b'kol? Rabbi Meir Omer shelo isalo bas, that he didn't have a daughter. That's what it means he was blessed with everything. Rabbi Yehuda Omer shelo isalo bas, that he had a daughter. Bas isalo Avram ubakol shema. Avram had a daughter and her name was Bakol. Avram had new astrology. All the kings of the east and west wanted to greet him, and that's what it means. Bakol. Bakol means everybody wanted Avram's advice. That Abraham had a beautiful stone on his neck. Shekol that anybody who was sick and looked at this stone was immediately healed. It was such a nifter Avram Avinu min olam, when Avram Avinu left the world. That Avram took this stone and stuck it into the sun. This is what people say when the sun goes away, when the sun comes out, the illness is taken away. Amar Abaye says, I know Damri Inchi. This is what people say. What does it mean? What it means that Avram was blessed with everything. That Esav did not rebel in his lifetime. That Yishmael repented in Abraham's lifetime. And how do we know that Esav didn't rebel when Abraham was alive? Esav came from the field and he was tired. That day Abraham died. And Jacob made a stew of lentils and to make a comfort for his father. And that was the day that Esav became a Rasha. Why did he make a stew of lentils? Just like this adasha, this lentil has no mouth. So to a mourner has no mouth. Just like this lentil is round. So too, the mourning goes around in a circle, coming to everyone. The question is, can we use eggs? According to the first approach, eggs are also appropriate because it has no mouth. But according to the second approach, you shouldn't use eggs on the Suda Savra, on the mourner's meal, because the eggs are not round. That day that Esav bought or sold the firstborn to Yaakov, he violated 5 averos. Baal Nara Murasa, he sinned with a Nara Murasa, with a girl who was engaged. V'haragas and Ephraim, she killed someone. V'kafar beikar, he denied the resurrection. He denied Hashem's existence. V'kafar b'tchias amesim, he denied the resurrection of the dead. V'shat esa b'chora, and he also sold the Bechorah. Baal Nara Murasa, he was with a Nara Murasa, because it says Vayavo Esav min hasadeh. And also it says Ksiv Hasam Kibis Sadeh Mitzvah by Nara Murasa. In the pasuk it says you found her in the field. So the same pasuk refers to Sadeh and by Esav. Haragas and actually killed somebody because Ksiv Hachayef, he was tired. Ksiv Hasam Oinoliki Aifa Nafshi Lorgam. It says in Jeremiah, he says, my soul is Ayef, tired of those that kill. Kafar Beikar, he denied the existence. And Hashem Ksiv Hachol, he says, why do I need this for me? Ksiv Hasam, he said, Kiwi Bamdeo. Cover with Chias Amesim, deny the resurrection of the dead. Behold, I'm about to die. And we know that he sold the firstborn because it says Esav rejected the firstborn. How do we know that Yishmael repented in Abraham's lifetime? Ravina and Rav Chama Barbuzi were sitting in front of Rava while Rava was sleeping, or he was dozing. Are you sure of that which they say that anytime it says Givia in the Torah, Zui Misasan Shel Tzadikim, that this means that Tzadikim have died, that this is a death for Tzadikim. When it mentions Givia, it's a code word. Amarle in. I'll prove it to you. Vador Mabo. What about the generation of the flood, where it mentions Givia? Amarle Anan Givia Vasifa Kamarina. I don't mean just Givia. I mean Givia and Asifa. By Yishmael Dachseve Givia Vasifa, but by Yishmael it says Givia and Asifa. So Rabba woke up in the meantime. Yeah, so he says, Rabba wake up. So and he says, children. That's why it says that Yishmael the tshuva. It says Vayikro. So Yitzchak Vishmael Banav, that they buried Yitzchak and Yishmael buried their father together. Well, maybe the only reason why it says them together is meaning to say that they were wise, not meaning to say that they participate in the burial. So it says that about Isaac that Esav and Yaakov buried him. My time why doesn't they list them by way of their wisdom? So it's evident that Yishmael told Yitzchak to go before him. The fact that Yishmael told Yitzchak go before him, this tells us he did tshuva in his lifetime. Obviously, there's so many powerful ideas in his stuff, so many powerful ideas, and we went through it very quickly that we could spend so much time going over each of these ideas as a daf that we need to spend our whole lifetime on to understand it. A big shkoyach to everybody.